Well, good morning from Prizren, the absolutely idyllic city that's the second largest in Kosovo. And you know, this is a city that has immense spiritual and historical value for both the Albanian and Serbian people. And with that being said, it really cuts straight to the core of the question about Kosovo itself, which is, well, what is it and how do you see it? Is this an independent state? Is it an integral part of the territory of Serbia? Or is this really just part of Albania? So one thing that I'll definitely say is that Prizren reminds me, on the surface at least, of a smaller version of Sarajevo. And in Sarajevo, they have a fountain where it's said that if you drink from it, you'll always come back to the city. Here in Prizren, this fountain, they say that if you drink from it, you'll always stay here. Well, as much as I like Prizren, I'm not sure if I want to stay here indefinitely, but nonetheless, there's your option. Man, I swear I could just stand here along one of these bridges all day. Wow. I don't know if the videos do it justice. It looks nicer in person than it possibly could on screen. So you know, back in the 14th century, for a period, Prizren was the capital of the Serbian Empire, an empire that would go out of existence in 1371. And by 1389, as Ottoman forces were continuing their advance, an epic battle took place in Kosovo between Serb Prince Lazar and his forces and the Ottomans. And the Ottomans were ultimately triumphant. But as a consequence of this, well, Serbs really look at that battle and Kosovo itself as very central to part of their national identity. They would see Kosovo as really the heart of Serbia itself. Well, I have heard that they love Americans here in Kosovo, and it seems as if that's definitely the case so far. So by 1878, Ottoman rule was beginning to slip in this particular part of the empire, and it was really unclear what this was going to mean for Albanians going forward. I mean, they were really concerned about the possibility of being partitioned between warring states. So in 1878, something was created here by the name of the League of Prizren, a political and military organization that was to fight for the autonomy of Albania. And as time went on, this, you could say, would morph into the Albanian independence movement, and by 1912, Albania is actually created as an independent country. But this particular part of historic Albania, as a lot of people would see it, was not to be included. Yeah, it's pretty surreal to set foot here because, well, it's a place where a national liberation movement actually was founded, and a national liberation movement in what today is a territory that's not even part of the country that ended up becoming independent.
After World War II, Yugoslavia was organized as a socialist federation, consisting of 6 republics. Serbia was the largest and most populous, and to keep any kind of nationalism in check, 2 autonomous provinces were created within its borders, Vojvodina in the north, and Kosovo in the south, where Albanians formed the overwhelming majority. In 1981, there was significant unrest after Albanian protesters demanded that Kosovo be made Yugoslavia's 7th republic. Martial law was declared, and tensions between Serbs and Albanians escalated, with many Serbs fleeing the province. Fast forward to 1989. By now, Slobodan Milosevic was Serbia's leader, and he would curtail autonomy for both Vojvodina and Kosovo. Now, Milosevic would go on to say that he was intent on keeping Yugoslavia together, but his critics would say that his Yugoslavism was actually a cover for Serb chauvinism and the desire to create a greater Serbia.
So, you know, I entered Kosovo from North Macedonia yesterday, and one of the first things that I realized was there was an omnipresence of statues everywhere commemorating martyrs of the KLA, or the Kosovo Liberation Army, those who would have died, especially in 1998 and 1999. And usually, you'll see the flag of Kosovo side by side with the flag of Albania, and also the KLA flag.
In the mid-1990s, the Kosovo Liberation Army, or KLA, was formed, with the goal of achieving independence. By 1998, an all-out war had taken shape, with Serb forces and paramilitaries driving Albanians from their homes in large numbers, often razing entire villages to the ground. At the same time, the KLA was also implicated in war crimes against the Serb population, including summary executions of civilians. According to Western leaders, Milosevic had designed a plan known as Operation Horseshoe for the full ethnic cleansing of Kosovo, and in 1999, NATO began a bombing campaign that remains controversial to this day. That's because NATO was supposed to be a defensive alliance, meaning that it would only act militarily if one of its members was attacked, which was not the case with Kosovo. It also didn't seek UN Security Council approval for its actions, infuriating Serbia's ally Russia. And of course, there were civilian casualties, although the numbers remain disputed to this day. Nonetheless, NATO was able to declare victory, with Milosevic agreeing to withdraw his troops from Kosovo, effectively making it a NATO protectorate. And by 2008, Kosovo had unilaterally declared its independence, bringing us up to today. A country recognized by many, but according to Serbia, still an integral part of its territory.
So in the heart of Prizren sits this Orthodox church, which is still very relevant to the few remaining Orthodox Serbs who live here in the city. Before the war in 1998, it was said that around 13,000 Serbs lived here, and today the number is apparently somewhere in the range of 80 to 90. Well, I'm trying to find my way up to the fortress, which is supposed to be about a 10-15 minute walk. But the thing is, I keep apparently going the wrong way because I keep hitting dead ends. So let's see if I can actually make it. Also, I'm still quite sick, so not sure if this is actually the best course of action, but let's do it anyway. Another Orthodox church on the way to the fortress, and this one definitely disused. Whew. It is quite a hike, but it's a beautiful day for it. Yeah, so this fortress, in some sense, dates back to the 6th century. I say in some sense because the way that it actually looks here, I think, is more of a reflection of the 18th century. But yeah, so many different empires would have passed through Prizren and had their base of power here, their capital here, including, like I said, the Serbian Empire at one point back in the 14th century. So what a history that this city has. And even the now defunct Kosovo Liberation Army oversees Prizren from the fortress. You know, coming down from the fortress, you can get a good look of the Sinan Pasha Mosque together in the same frame with the Orthodox Church. So again, I mean, symbolizing the diverse past anyway that this city has had. So the Kosovo flag is quite interesting. I mean, it's only similar in a sense to that of Cyprus, in that these are the two flags that I can think of anyway, which actually have an outline of the country, the way it looks geographically. Now, it has 6 stars on it, and it's said that those stars are supposed to represent the ethnic groups. So, of course, Albanians and Serbs, but also Turks, Gorani, Roma, and Bosniaks. But there's another interpretation which says that it actually represents the greater Albanian nation and its 6 components. So it really depends who you ask, I suppose. Well, good morning everybody, once more from Prizren, and day 2 here in Kosovo and day 7 of my Balkan road trip. And 7 days, by the way, of being extremely sick. I'm not sure if you can hear it in my voice. I might have no voice by the end of today. Let's see what happens. But anyway, yeah, I got a super early night yesterday because today the idea is to head up to Pristina, the capital, and there should be buses every 15 to 20 minutes. And the bus should only cost, I think, between 5 and 6 euros. Man, you know, this is one of those places I feel so grateful to have had the chance to set foot in. And I would say that if you are coming to the Balkans, put Prizren very close to the top of your list. And you only need probably half a day here to be fair, but if you can spend a night, all the better. just like that, a little more than 2 hours after leaving Prizren, welcome to Pristina, which means welcome to another Yugoslav capital, as this would have been the capital of the socialist. Well, one thing about Prizren is it was such a beautiful city, but I didn't really see any socialist architecture. But just getting off the bus here in Pristina, and that's changed automatically. You know, we've seen a lot of statues in our time on this channel, and we actually started this trip looking at statues of Lenin and Dimitrov in Sofia. But how far we've fallen to now be able to look at a statue of Bill motherfucking Clinton. There he is, man. Well, surely this must be the only statue of Bill Clinton anywhere in the world. Surely. And of course, who would Bill himself be without the woman behind him? Hillary. And if you've been wondering what she's been doing since being trounced in the election in 2016, well, look no further than Pristina. Alright, bro, so Bill Clinton, I kinda get, but Bob Dole? I had no idea there was a Bob Dole statue in Kosovo. Damn, they've taken this to a whole nother level. Man, to be totally real with you, the Bob Dole statue is still weirding me out. And you know, that's the thing, actually, when it comes to the lineage of the KLA and the other forces that would have been fighting for the independence of Kosovo, or for Kosovo to become, you know, united with Albania, they actually have their origins in Hoxhaism, in anti-revisionist Marxism-Leninism. You know, there's architecture in the world which you either love or you hate. And I think that this building here, the National Library, which by the way is definitely from the period of the Socialist Autonomous Province, yeah, this is one of those. And online, actually, a lot of people refer to it as the ugliest building in the world. But now that I'm up next to it, I actually really like it. So sitting right across from the National Library, you have this Orthodox church, which is just sitting in limbo. I mean, it was never completed, and they didn't want to actually have it torn down, fearing the sort of response that would elicit from the Serb community. So the monument to the heroines consists of more than 20,000 pieces of metal, and that refers to the amount of women who it was said were raped by Serb forces during the war. So the significance of the Palace of Youth and Sports is not merely that it's from socialist Yugoslavia. It's from 1977. It's also that when it opened, it had the name Boro and Ramiz, and this referred to two Kosovar anti-fascist partisans, one having been Serb and one Albanian. So very deliberately, the intention here was to promote the idea of multi-ethnic, multinational unity, which is something that Tito's Yugoslavia always attempted to do, but ultimately could not succeed in. And as an expression of how far we've come since the period of Boro and Ramiz, now you have a photo here of Adam Yashari, who's considered one of the founders of the KLA, and he actually died in a standoff with Yugoslav forces in 1998. Well, you can't see too much inside, but doesn't look like this has been open for a bit. You know, I feel like I'm back filming some of the Olympic ruins in Sarajevo. And actually, you know, same country as back in the day, so I guess there is that. And this is the most famous monument in the entirety of Kosovo, the Newborn Monument, which was erected the day that Kosovo unilaterally declared its independence in 2008. Man, this is the icing on the cake. Madeleine Albright. In fact, the Kosovo War was often referred to as Madeleine's War because she was really the one pushing for it more than anybody else. But yeah, not a surprise that Madeleine would be represented here in Pristina as well. Well, for me, this might be the most Yugoslav structure here, the monument representing unity and brotherhood. And the main pedestrian walkway here in Pristina is aptly called the Mother Teresa Boulevard. Well, where there are Albanians, there is of course Skanderbeg. You know, some of these side streets here in Pristina have me feeling like I'm back in Tirana. A very, very similar vibe. Well, you know, I think one thing that's really impossible to ignore walking around Pristina is the fact that it does seem like a very ethnically homogenous place. And it was said that in 1999, at the height of the war, or I guess you can say at the conclusion of the war, well, around 40,000 Serbs lived here in this city. So it was quite mixed in many ways. But today, apparently only around 15 remain. So yeah, what does this mean going forward? I mean, can Kosovo actually become a state for all ethnic groups?